Lying requires something remarkable. You have to know what is true while simultaneously constructing something that isn't. You have to model what another person believes, predict how they'll react, understand what they know, and then build a version of reality specifically designed for their mind. That's not simple. And for most of Earth's creatures, it's almost impossible. But here's the strange part. Humans don't just lie. We lie constantly. Children do it, adults do it. We lie to strangers, friends, enemies, lovers. Sometimes to protect ourselves, sometimes to protect someone else. Sometimes for money, sometimes for status, and sometimes for no reason we can even explain. So why? Why did evolution produce a creature capable of constructing realities that don't exist and convincing another mind that they do? Because the story of human deception may actually be the story of something much bigger, the evolution of the human mind itself. Imagine a child alone in a kitchen. There's a plate of cookies on the table. The child has been told not to touch them, but the parent leaves. The child looks at the cookies, looks toward the doorway, and takes one, then another. A few minutes later, the parent returns. Did you eat the cookies? The child looks directly at them. No. It sounds insignificant, almost funny, but something extraordinary has just happened. The child isn't simply hiding the truth. The child understands something deeper. My parent knows something. I know something different, and I can make my parent believe something that isn't true. That requires the child to hold two realities in mind at once, the truth and the version of reality they want someone else to accept. And that ability doesn't appear fully formed, it develops. Around the age of 2, children begin showing early signs that other people can know things they don't. By around 3 or 4, children become much better at understanding that another person can hold a belief that is completely different from reality. And around this same period, more sophisticated deception begins to appear. That isn't proof that lying is somehow good. It's something more interesting. It tells us the brain has reached a new level of social understanding. The child has discovered something that will eventually transform the entire human world. Other people have minds, and those minds can be understood, predicted, influenced, and sometimes misled. But where did that ability come from? To answer that, we have to go much further back, before cities, before agriculture, before writing, before language as we know it. Back to a world where the most dangerous thing an early human might encounter wasn't always a predator. Sometimes it was another human. Imagine an early human group moving across the landscape. There is food nearby, but not enough for everyone. There are alliances, rivalries, dominant individuals, potential mates, potential enemies. Everyone is watching everyone else. One individual discovers a food source. Do they tell the group? Maybe, but perhaps they don't. Maybe they pretend they haven't seen it. Another person notices. Now the first individual has a problem. They know something. The other person knows that they know something. And the first person knows that the other person knows. This sounds almost trivial to us, but cognitively, it's enormous. Because the environment is no longer just trees, rivers, predators, and weather. The environment is now other minds. And other minds are unpredictable, unless you can model them. Around 2 million years ago, the brains of our ancestors began undergoing a remarkable transformation. Across human evolution, brain size increased dramatically, and brains are expensive organs. The modern human brain makes up only a small fraction of body weight, yet consumes a disproportionately large share of the body's energy. Evolution doesn't build something that expensive without strong pressures acting on it. For decades, researchers proposed different explanations. Perhaps larger brains helped our ancestors make increasingly sophisticated tools. Perhaps hunting required greater planning. Perhaps changing environments demanded greater flexibility. These ideas may all explain part of the story, but another possibility emerged. What if one of the hardest problems our ancestors faced wasn't the physical world? What if it was each other? In the 1970s and 1980s, primatologists and evolutionary biologists developed ideas that eventually became associated with what is often called the Machiavellian intelligence hypothesis. The basic proposal was provocative. Perhaps intelligence was shaped not only by surviving the environment, but by surviving increasingly complicated social lives. If you had to remember who was allied with whom, who knew what, who could be trusted, who was competing with you, and who might be trying to manipulate you, then every other intelligent individual became part of the problem you had to solve. And that could create something like an arms race. If one individual became better at deception, others had an incentive to become better at detecting it. If detection improved, deception had to become more sophisticated. Then detection improved again, round after round, generation after generation. Not necessarily as a conscious competition, but as an evolutionary pressure. A world where understanding another mind could mean gaining food, avoiding exploitation, forming alliances, winning status, or simply surviving. And eventually, that pressure may have helped produce the extraordinary social intelligence inside your skull. At this point, it would be easy to think humans are completely unique. We're not. Animals deceive too. A plover can perform a broken wing display, drawing a predator away from a nest. Some orchids mimic the signals of female insects, attracting males without providing the reward they expect. And cuttlefish can do something almost absurd. A male can display patterns that make him appear female to a rival male, while simultaneously presenting male signals toward a female he is trying to court. That's deception, and it's incredibly sophisticated. So what makes human deception different? The answer isn't simply that animals can't lie. The answer is that human deception can become extraordinarily flexible, and much of that flexibility may depend on something psychologists call theory of mind, the ability to understand that another individual has beliefs, desires, knowledge, and intentions that are different from your own. Imagine the food again. You know where it is. I don't. You know that I don't. But now, you also know that I suspect you know, and you know that I might try to figure out what you know. We're no longer reacting to the environment. We're modeling each other's minds. And that creates a strange evolutionary problem. Because once you can model another person's mind, they can potentially model yours. Imagine two humans facing each other. One is trying to deceive. The other is trying to detect the deception. The deceiver thinks, what does this person believe? The detector thinks, what does this person want me to believe? The deceiver thinks, what evidence would make my story believable? The detector thinks, why would they give me that evidence? Now the game has become recursive. I am thinking about what you're thinking about what I'm thinking. And suddenly, the social world becomes a maze of other minds. This may be one reason human intelligence is so deeply social. Because the most difficult puzzle wasn't always, how do I make a better tool? Sometimes it was, what is the person next to me thinking? And here is where the story becomes uncomfortable, because the mental ability that makes deception possible is closely related to the ability that makes empathy possible. Think about empathy. To understand another person, you have to step outside your own perspective. You have to imagine their experience, what they're feeling, what they know, what they're afraid of, what they want. Now think about lying. You have to do almost the same thing. You have to leave your own perspective, enter someone else's, understand their current model of reality, and construct something that fits inside it. The cognitive operations overlap. The moral intentions can be completely different. And that may be one of the strangest facts about human intelligence. Our ability to understand another mind can be pointed in opposite directions, toward compassion or manipulation, toward connection or deception. The machinery is related. The choice is what changes. And once you realize this, something else begins to look different. Something we normally think has nothing to do with lying at all. Fiction. Every novel asks you to believe in people who never existed. Every film asks you to care about events that never happened. Every story told beside a fire asks an audience to temporarily enter a reality constructed inside someone else's mind. The storyteller knows, this isn't real. The audience knows, this isn't real. And yet, they willingly enter it. They laugh. They fear. They cry. They love characters who never existed. That is not deception in the harmful sense. But the underlying cognitive ability is remarkably similar. You construct a world. You understand what another mind will accept, and you guide that mind through an imagined reality. The same mental machinery that can create a lie can create a story. And stories changed humanity. They allowed knowledge to travel beyond the people who personally experienced it. They allowed groups to imagine futures that didn't yet exist. They allowed strangers to share ideas, values, fears, and dreams. And eventually, they helped humans cooperate on a scale no individual could manage alone. So perhaps the evolution of deception wasn't just a story about learning how to fool one another. Perhaps it was part of a much larger transformation, the ability to construct realities inside other minds. Language makes this even stranger. Animals communicate. They warn each other. They signal danger. They indicate food. They attract mates. But human language can do something extraordinary. It can describe things that aren't here, things that happened yesterday, things that might happen tomorrow, things that could happen if circumstances were different, things that never happened at all. You can tell someone about a mountain you've never seen, describe a person who doesn't exist, invent a future, remember a past, construct a fictional world, or tell a lie. And the listener can build a mental representation of that reality inside their own mind. Some researchers have proposed that the social demands of deception may have contributed to pressures favoring increasingly flexible communication. It's only one possibility, but consider the cognitive problem of maintaining a lie. You have to remember what you said, who you said it to, what they believe, what they don't know, what you have revealed, and what you still need to hide. A lie isn't just a sentence. A complex lie can become an entire alternate model of reality, one that has to remain internally consistent. And maintaining that model requires memory, planning, prediction, and social reasoning. In that sense, deception can become a kind of cognitive workout. And now, we've brought all of this ancient machinery into a world our ancestors could never have imagined. You open your phone, a photograph appears. Someone is smiling, someone is angry, someone claims something happened, someone tells you what you should believe. You don't know them. You can't inspect their face from across a fire. You can't watch their body language. You may not even know whether the person you're seeing actually exists. And yet your brain immediately begins asking ancient questions. What do they know? What do they want me to believe? And what are they hiding? We evolved in small social groups where deception was personal, face-to-face, immediate, and expensive. Being caught could damage your reputation, your relationships, your alliances, your chances of cooperation. But today, deception can be industrialized. An advertisement can reach millions. A political message can be repeated endlessly. A carefully edited social media profile can construct a life that never existed. And increasingly, artificial intelligence can generate images, voices, and videos of events that never happened. Our ancient cognitive machinery is now operating in an environment it was never designed for. The scale has changed. The technology has changed. But the basic question hasn't. Every time someone tries to influence what you believe, your brain is trying to model their mind. And despite all this sophistication, humans are surprisingly bad at knowing when someone is lying. Research on lie detection has repeatedly found that ordinary people are generally only modestly accurate at distinguishing lies from truths. And professional experience does not magically turn someone into a human lie detector. Which makes sense. Evolution didn't need to give us perfect lie detection. It needed to give us something more practical: the ability to navigate relationships, to notice unusual behavior, to remember who betrayed us, to recognize alliances, to learn whom we could trust. Because the goal wasn't to detect every lie. The goal was to survive in a social world where trust and deception were constantly interacting. And now, that same brain is being asked to evaluate information from strangers, institutions, algorithms, anonymous accounts, and machines. A problem our ancestors never had to solve. Which brings us back to the beginning. To that child standing beside the cookies, to the ancient human hiding a food source, to the person sitting across from you telling you something that may or may not be true. What makes lying possible isn't simply dishonesty, it's perspective. The ability to step outside your own mind and build a model of another person's, to understand what they know, what they want, what they fear, what they believe, and then to change what they believe. That same ability can be used to manipulate, but it can also be used to understand, to comfort, to cooperate, to tell stories, to create art, to imagine another person's pain, to love someone whose experience you can never completely inhabit. And perhaps that is the deeper story of human intelligence. We didn't simply become smarter. We became extraordinarily good at modeling other minds. And once you can model another mind, you can deceive it. You can understand it. You can entertain it. You can frighten it. You can comfort it. You can coordinate with it. You can build an entire civilization with it. The capacity to deceive and the capacity to connect are not opposites. They are twins, born from the same ancient pressure, in the minds of ancestors who had to understand each other in order to survive each other. We are the species that can imagine another person's inner world with such precision that we can construct a false reality perfectly calibrated to deceive them. And we are also the species that can imagine another person's inner world with such precision that we can write stories that make strangers cry over people who never existed. We can lie, we can love, we can manipulate, we can empathize. And all of these abilities depend in part on the same extraordinary gift, the ability to imagine what is happening inside another mind. So the next time someone looks you in the eyes and tells you something, your brain is doing something ancient. It's asking, what do they know? What do they want? What do they believe? And are those things the same? You are running one of evolution's most extraordinary achievements, a system built through millions of years of social competition, refined by cooperation, conflict, deception, and connection, and carried inside your skull every second of your life. The capacity to deceive, the capacity to understand, the capacity to connect. They may have begun with the same ancient problem, another mind. And perhaps the most remarkable thing about being human isn't that we learned how to lie. It's that in learning to understand another person's mind, we eventually learned how to imagine an entire world inside it. You just never had to install it. It came with you.